It's a well-established fact that the Fillebrown women were avid thrifters and antique purchasers, spending many weekends buying unique and memorable items for their home. But there is one special item in the house whose backstory features a very famous backside taking a seat. The White Bear Lake Area Historical Society has 2 letters from a Mr. George William Ladd to Mrs. J.W. Fillebrown regarding the purchase of 2 chairs from a Senator Browning's home in Quincy, Illinois. The first letter, dated January 31, 1912, indicates that the chair in question was originally part of a set of 6. Mr. Ladd informs Mrs. Fillebrown, "And I want to tell you, you have a good bargain and can show them as from the Browning home, and then can say that Abraham Lincoln sat in them many times, as that was where he was entertained many times, as all Quincy old-time citizens will tell you." Hold on. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States and arguably the most beloved Abraham Lincoln, sat in a chair the Fillebrowns purchased. Could that even possibly be true? Well, a subsequent letter from Mr. Ladd to Mrs. Fillebrown, dated April 12, 1912, stated, "You will have, when they are finished, 2 chairs that you will prize almost as gold, as they are surely treasures. If my wife had been living, I would not have parted with them, as they were in the Browning home from the early days when they were the great and good of all time, while they lived, and the great friends who so royally entertained Abraham Lincoln." Thus, the Lincoln chair came into the possession of Harriet Cox Fillebrown, and our questions begin. Did Lincoln really sit in this chair? While we are positive the Fillebrowns only ended up with 1 chair from the original set of 6, we knew Honest Abe would want us to figure out if this story was fact or fiction. So let's start digging into that backstory, or back-end story. Senator Orville Browning was a Republican senator from Illinois. He was appointed to fill the U.S. Senate seat of Stephen A. Douglas, who died from typhoid fever in 1861. While his political career was a bit bumpy, it was his social connections that made Browning interesting. As a Kentucky native, an Illinois lawyer, and a member of the Whig Party, Browning had much in common with Abraham Lincoln, and the two became especially close, with Browning being described as the one man who Lincoln held by the hand as a brother, even after Lincoln became president in 1861. While these anecdotes of their friendship are heartwarming, this doesn't necessarily mean the popular president ever sat down in Browning's dwellings. Well, prior to the debate between Lincoln and Stephen Douglas in Quincy in 1858, German-American politician Carl Schurz recalled in his journal, "When we arrived at Quincy, they," meaning Lincoln, "got into a carriage, much against his wish, for he said that he would prefer to foot it to Browning's, an old friend's house, where he was to have supper and a quiet night." So we can confirm, Lincoln in Browning's dining room with a candlestick. Well, maybe not the candlestick, but it probably was there anyways. We can assume, given Lincoln's comfort level with Browning's, that he visited the Quincy home often, and thus increasing our odds that we do in fact own a chair that once supported Lincoln's 6'4" frame. Unfortunately for Browning, the once besties would end up having a falling out over Browning's indecision on the war, particularly slavery, meaning Browning was okay with it. That ended all contact between the two by 1864. Lincoln would be assassinated in 1865, and Browning would go on to be appointed Secretary of the Interior in 1866, and then practice law in Quincy, Illinois, until his death in 1881. While we'll never truly know if Lincoln sat in the one chair we own from the Browning estate, what we can tell you is that friendships may come and go, but wooden chairs are forever. At least the one at the Fillebrown house. And that is a fact.